Planning board is now in session. It's Monday, May 10th, 7 p.m. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law 3818, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Southborough Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website at www.southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting or participate in the public hearing may do so in the following manner. Again, www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So good evening, everyone. First item on the agenda is a discussion item, Master Plan Committee update, which I think is going to be rather small. Mrs. Luttrell.
Yes, sadly, we did not have a quorum for our last meeting on Wednesday. Our next meeting is June 10th at 7:30.
June 10th.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Anything else? Questions, comments? Anyone from the public?
Mimi, is there any chance to schedule an earlier meeting? Do you think it's necessary, or you think that still will work with our goal to get some of those graphs updated and charts?
I do have some of, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to ask Sarah if she's gotten any.
So yes, I did actually receive some data requests from several of the chapters. So we could, I think, piece together kind of any information that we haven't received. So schools, for example, is one that we have not received yet. Recreation, but we could perhaps look at the 2008 plan and just see, what might make sense, and then send it out, to the prospective leads and just get a, yes, like feedback, versus them having to kind of do that heavy lifting.
So we can keep going in the interim, in between the meetings, we can keep moving with the plan to procure some assistance.
Anything else, anyone?
Any input from the board on the goals and recommendations?
Sorry, Mimi, I did not look.
So we will continue on. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a 7:05 p.m. continued public hearing. This is for an annual town meeting warrant article to amend section 174-10, site plan approval. This public hearing is continued from February 22nd, March 8th, March 29th, April 12th, and April 26th. So time for this public hearing is 7:05, which should, by my computer, be any second now. And then we will begin our continued public hearing tonight. Any second now. There it is. So this would be Mrs. Luttrell.
So at our last meeting, we had asked town planner to seek town council opinion on two things. One, if this article could be amended to reinsert the constructive approval language on the floor of town meeting. And two, whether there was any legal recourse for a proponent if that language was not reinserted in the article passed as printed in the warrant. And it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, Karina, that town council opined that the article could be amended to reinsert that language, and that they're, although unclear because site plan is not part of Chapter 40A, there would be a legal recourse. A proponent could appeal should the planning board fail to act.
That's what I read in as well in town council's feedback, that an amendment that reintroduces the constructive approval language can be made for the town meeting consideration. And also the system regarding site plan approval and appeals has a wide range of response. So town council speaks to that in his feedback to us. So there is recourse in an appeal in any case, but planning board, if an applicant doesn't agree to extend or request extension, the planning board always has the option to deny the site plan approval based on incomplete information. That's all I wanted to say on that.
So what I would suggest is that based on town council's advice that the language can be added back in, no problem. And since the issue of constructive approval is not universally agreed to as far as removal or keeping, I would recommend that the board tonight stay away from a discussion about constructive approval and consider a motion to create a draft amendment to this warrant article that would add that sentence back in, and therefore removing any discussion about constructive approval. And then the article would be focused on its main reason for being there, which is to clean up the minor site plan component of 174-10. So if the board feels that that's the way to go, then certainly we can have discussion on constructive approval if you want, but I would suggest that we just entertain a motion to add that sentence back in.
So moved. Second.
So we have a motion to amend the article to add the constructive approval wording back in. And that draft amendment would be drafted by the town planner and then sent to town council for his check. And then if he recommends that the moderator look at it, we would have that done and be able to tell the public at the town meeting the path and reason for returning it and recommending the amendment to return that language back to the article. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Mills?
So wait, are we keeping it in our back pocket if it becomes a big discussion item, or we're just gonna put it in now?
Well, we can't put it in now, but we can vote to bring an amendment forward. As soon as the article is called at the town meeting, the speaker will then say, Mr. Moderator, I'd like to have the floor consider an amendment. And of course, they always say, oh, it's got to be in writing. We would already have it in writing. It's got to be reviewed by town council. It will already have been reviewed by town council and the moderator. And then the amendment would be read to the floor if the floor and explained. And if the floor agrees, they would vote to approve the amendment, which would add the language back in. And then the main article would come forward
Who's that?
to be voted on.
Well, so my question was, do we want to, I mean, I think we could leave it the way it is. And then if it becomes a big discussion item, one of us could make the motion to say, Mr. Moderator, I move that we add back in the language and we have it in our back pocket and then just insert it. Or is that going to be too confusing?
It seems as though we've already been advised that at least two selectmen are not happy with the removal. And I think that would precipitate a discussion, and it might divert the attention from where we really want it, which is the minor site plan.
Okay, all right, that's fine. No other questions?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Did anyone or did a discussion regarding maybe extending that time frame for constructive approval? I know that the Board of Selectmen have expressed that they would be in consideration or in support of adding it back in and maybe pushing it out to 90 days or 120 days. Is that worth kind of thinking about at this point?
I'm open to that myself. We can see what the board says, but I would keep it simple. Put what's in there back in so the people have a comfort level that we're not changing anything relative to constructive approval. If someone else wants to make that amendment, like selectmen, to move it out to 90 days, then we would probably welcome it. But again, if we try to amend it to a longer period of time, people may not have a good understanding of what constructive approval is. And since these are among the last articles of town meeting, people's patience are going to be thin, and they don't want to have a technical discussion that late in the day or in the meeting. So I think the art part of this is to keep it as simple as we can. But that's just my opinion. Go ahead, Mimi.
So the strategy is to move the article and then immediately propose an amendment so that constructive approval doesn't get discussed on town meeting. Well, to try and avoid a long discussion on constructive approval. Is that the strategy? Yeah. And I think I think once the article is read in and the amendment is allowed to go forward for discussion, we can explain to the public that the original intent of this article was to address the minor site plan, and that it was town council's recommendation that at the same time we take out the constructive approval. But as a result of the public hearing process, we've learned that it's probably better to just leave it in. Okay.
And if necessary, I mean, you did some great research on that, and maybe there'll be other areas out there that would help or reinforce the idea of removing it. But until then, we may be trying to fix something that at least for now is not broken. Any other questions or comments? So the motion is to have the town council, a town planner draft an amendment to add the language back in, have it reviewed by town council and ready for town meeting. Any discussion? Questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor, Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Very good. Any other questions or comments on that this public hearing article 174-10?
No, and we have no attendees at the moment.
So the other part of this is the requirement, because it's zoning, to submit a report. And as you probably know, town planner has drafted a report reflecting our work on this article in 2020 and those public hearings, and then our work on this article in 2021 and the current public hearing. And the reason why it was in both years and what happened to it, which was that it was agreed to pull the article and push it on to the next town meeting, which is in 12 days. So if you've, so the question would be, if you've read the report, it doesn't mention anything about an amendment. So if the report is silent relative to the amendment, the people may say, well, okay, you're reporting to us that you're okay with the article without the amendment. So are you okay with the article with the amendment? So should we put in the report our feelings about the amendment? And then if we put in the report that we're okay with the article with the amendment, and the amendment doesn't pass, people might say, well, are you okay with the article without the amendment? So I think relative to the report, if we entertained a motion that the planning board is okay with the report saying essentially that we're okay with the article with or without the amendment. And if that's the vote tonight, that gives the town planner the green light to craft the report, one of those two options. And she would get guidance from Aldo relative to that type of a report that would say it's okay either way.
Mr. Chairman, I
if we-
make a motion,
No, go ahead.
I make a motion, we approve the town planner to go ahead and amend the report for annual town meeting warrant article, amend section 174-10 site plan approval to include language that we are okay with or without the amendment that we will request at town meeting floor.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? You say we have nobody watching, Sarah?
Nobody.
Nobody at the
So
moment.
sad.
No, actually, that's a huge compliment. They we're
trust
trusted
us.
to carry on. Yeah. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Morris, yes.
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Thank you. So
Sarah,
if we're
can
all
I-
set with.
Yeah.
If
Go
we're
ahead,
all set
Joe.
with that, then it may be appropriate to close the public hearing.
Chairman, I make a motion, we close the public hearing for annual town meeting warrant article, amend section 174-10 site plan approval.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion to close the public hearing? Mrs. Luttrell.
So if we close the public hearing, does that mean we can't have any more discussion on this item? Like if town council has any tweaks or anything to the amendment or to the report, or can we entertain that?
We wouldn't have another meeting to entertain it until town meeting. So I believe the previous motion that got approved was basically giving the town planner the green light to draft the report as we stated, and there's latitude in there for town council to modify the language as long as the intent, which is we're okay with the article with or without the amendment.
Okay.
And just a correction, Mr. Chairman, it looks like it says on the agenda, our next meeting is May 24th, which I think is the Monday after town meeting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we don't even have a meeting scheduled at town meeting.
We could if we wanted to, but I don't know how productive that would be.
Agreed.
Especially since we're kind of setting the table for having the article go forward with or without the amendment.
No, I agreed. I just want to make sure that for my own mind that we weren't scheduled to have a meeting yet at town meeting.
We can.
No, it's okay.
It's also my understanding from the prior years that you don't need to post a meeting agenda for a town meeting.
Right, but sometimes if what time's the town meeting start? 10 o'clock in the
10
morning?
o'clock. Mhm.
So we would schedule a planning board meeting at 9 o'clock.
Yes, if you needed a pre-ATM meeting like we typically did, we could post one. But if it's not necessary, you don't need one for the town meeting specifically.
Yeah, I mean, we can post another planning board meeting anytime between now and probably 9 a.m. on the 22nd. If there's a desire to do so, we'll have to do that tonight to continue this hearing. If there isn't, then we'll close the hearing. So there's a motion to close the hearing, and it's been seconded. And we just had some discussion. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Good, thank you. Public hearing is closed.
Sarah, could you just, is it possible for you to update Dawn's label for the
Oh,
video?
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Because it says Karina Quinn under Dawn.
Thanks, Karina.
You're welcome.
Okay, next item on the agenda is a 7:10 p.m. public hearing, continued public hearing, annual town meeting warrant article. Amend section 174-9, special permit requirements, 174-19, extensions or alterations. This public hearing is continued from February 22nd, March 8th, March 29th, April 12th, and April 26th. This is a warrant article brought forward by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Is there anyone here from the ZBA?
No one from the ZBA, Dustin is here.
So Karina, have you have any information that would or compel us to not close this hearing tonight?
I don't, since the last public hearing, number 4 on April 12th, actually April 26th, sorry about that. We have not received any further input or questions. Sarah, I don't believe you have either.
Nope, I have not, and I've kept the ZBA staff apprised to, how things are going here on our end, and so hearing no other comments or concerns from them, though.
And Katie Barry now works downstairs in the townhouse right below us, so we see her pretty much daily.
Are we aware, is anyone aware of the person who will present this article for the ZBA?
at last mention during the public hearing, I think either at the very beginning of this public hearing or at last year's public hearing for this topic, I think David Williams, he's the chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I believe he's the one who'll be speaking to this.
That's my
The
understanding too.
Yeah, the town moderator, when he did the dry run last week, probably either established then or since who was going to present it. So any more questions, comments? Otherwise, we could entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Chairman, make a motion, we close the public hearing for annual town meeting warrant article, amend section 174-9 special permit requirements, 174-19 extensions or alterations.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Very good. Public hearing is closed. Next item on the agenda is the 7:15 continued
John,
public hearing.
can I just mention one thing before you totally go out? That we also have a report to town meeting on that article as well.
Oh, right. That's right. Yep.
So it's standard procedure language that the planning board supports and recommends. Article 35, which Andrew just described in the motion, and is prepared to speak to this decision at annual town meeting. I don't know if I should probably, well, the planning board is always prepared to speak to these, but that's what the report indicates.
So for this article, it may be appropriate for the board to vote, have a separate vote to support the article.
Yes. Sorry, that happened so fast. I was just trying to.
And the report would the draft report reflects that we voted to support it. Mr. Mills. We need a motion for the planning board to support. What's the article number?
Article 35.
Make a motion, we draft a, what is it? A write-up?
So the planning board.
No,
to
this
support it.
motion is just for that the planning board support Article 35.
So moved.
Mhm.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded to support Article 35. All in favor? Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
So now the draft report that we've seen for this article reflects that vote. Can move on to the next public hearing. Let's continue public hearing for town meeting warrant article to update section 174-12.1 outdoor illumination. This is continued from February 22nd, March 8th, March 29th, April 12th, and April 26th. Mrs. Houlihan.
Yeah, so there is a lot to update. So last week I participated in the advisory meeting. Did I also participate in selectmen meeting? No, that was the week before. In the advisory meeting, and it was a good discussion with Kathy Cook and the advisory team members. And I came out of there acknowledging that we would have a few things, and tonight we do. So the first is around language specific to applicability. So Chairman Healy had requested that we write specific language about kind of utilizing terminology unless and until the lights were broken or vandalized, that people didn't have to change their bulbs. And so we wanted to ensure that we the working group wanted to make sure we wrote it in a way that was reflective of the fact that applicability still applies to single and two family homes. And I think the challenge here is that people think we're changing applicability, and we're not. We're maintaining applicability for everybody. So Aldo, town council, opined on that and provided new alternative language that I would be motioning an amendment immediately after we motion to have this discussed on town meeting. And so the language there, was that you, Sarah? Were you just putting that up?
It was, I just grabbed I just have to grab the latest version.
Perfect. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing, advisory had requested in our applicability, we suggest that it applies to a spot or floodlight with wattage greater than 60 watts. So they wanted definition of what a spot and a floodlight were in our definition section. So we've written definitions, and I think it would be great if the planning board can look at those definitions and be comfortable with those. Those are, I have researched the definition of spot and floodlight and written what I think is appropriate. And I would just like that if we can throw those up there afterwards as well.
Here we go. So can you see the definitions?
You make it bigger?
Yes.
Thank you.
So basically the difference between a floodlight and a spotlight, just very broadly, is a floodlight is a broad beam, kind of wider angle, and it illuminates a kind of a broad range for shorter distance. A spotlight is a narrow beam of light, and it projects light a farther distance. So you can kind of see farther down like a path, like a flashlight is a spotlight, and a floodlight might be something that you have over your garage that illuminates the area of your driveway. I'll let you read them. I'm not going to read them to you.
I'm comfortable with that.
Thanks, Andrew.
Is this a collection of your research, or is this from one source?
No, it's a collection from the research. I think there's technical ways where you want to kind of define the angle of the beam of the angle, and then there's kind of the broader applicability or lay language, and that's where I thought it would be important to pull in where these lights are typically used. But I think it's hopefully defining what the difference is.
Yeah, and has the building inspector looked at these definitions?
No.
But we can get her this information
Yes.
pretty quickly. The other thing is that if we do move forward with the consultant that the working group is looking at, he may be able to give you some feedback on these two definitions, and they could always be, again, amended on the floor as a definition.
Yes, and that would be a motion to amend not only the applicability section, but this definition section. So we'd be making, I think it's 2 motions. 3, right? The lighting, the amendment of the applicability, and the amendment to the definitions. I don't know if we can do it all in one.
Yeah, I think you're right, Marnie, that if people are okay with the definition, but they're not okay with the applicability, the article could still go forward with these definitions. Separate issues. Yeah, I'm cool. I'm okay with this. So Andrew, how about Jesse? Mimi?
Yep, looks good.
Yep.
Perfect.
So this will get to our newly found consultant and also to the building inspector for input. Either way, I mean, you can still change these right up to the town meeting, so.
And then Dustin also joined, so I don't know if we want to pull Dustin in, Sarah, because he's
Yeah.
joined for the meeting.
Absolutely.
And I did get the approval of the moderator to have Dustin present with me. And he's agreed to do so.
Mhm.
Why?
Well, his appearance, what was it, 2 years ago? At a planning board meeting?
Was
That's
the
what got him
genesis
here.
of all this. Yes, absolutely.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Just trying to,
And as he's coming in, this is the language that town council. So Chairman Healy had suggested some language. And so we, the working group, changed that language and tried to make it very clear. And so this is what town council provided in a very straightforward memo, which was really nice to receive.
Yeah, Marty, I just want to point out that what's highlighted on the screen right now is what we provided to town council for review. And he tweaked both of these slightly
yes.
to remove some of the parentheses and the way it was written out instead of 4/11, you put April 11th. It just made it a better flowing paragraph, both of them. But
So I
same
can,
intent.
I can share town council's feedback. Next.
There's Destin now.
He's coming right over.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome, Dr. Heilman.
It's good to see you
Welcome
all.
back.
We're at the final stretch.
It's been a long road.
Okay. So here is the exact language that Aldo came up with in the italics.
So those two paragraphs would replace the two highlighted paragraphs you just saw.
And I think from the working group perspective, I think we're very pleased with this result. And I think it's it kind of continues to validate the intent, which is basically what is the intent? He wrote it nicely. Not to create an automatic non-compliance by existing illuminating structures or fixtures, but instead to define what needs to occur that warrants subsequent compliance.
And has this latest language been reviewed by the building inspector or the selectman?
No, it was hot off the press, I think around 4:30 today.
Okay, so like the previous article, there's time to have this reviewed by others and can be revised right up until town meeting.
Yes, but the intent, just to be clear, the intent is carried through now, that different from what was printed in the warrant that, I believe it's different, where it said, comply with guidance in the rules and outdoor and the planning board non-conforming fixtures for any reason shall be replaced in compliance with the bylaw. So I believe what was printed said that they would have to be replaced right away, right, Marnie? But this
That's-
new language, right? So that was printed in the warrant, but this new language, which has been worked and massaged up to this point by the working group and town council, says that if you have existing lights and under the new bylaw, you don't have to change them to comply unless they break or they need replacement. Then you would update your bulb or fixture. Just so you're clear that there is a distinct difference between what was printed in the warrant and what's proposed here.
So in the process of explaining that, I think it would give people comfort that what was originally proposed was initially perceived as being not the greatest. And now this is a better, much better way to assure compliance.
Right, it eased that requirement so that people have, it's not an immediate impact. It's a gradual impact. If you realize your bulb is 120 watts and certain color temperature, you can probably put in 100-watt bulb and with, a lower color temperature, and you would comply.
And I actually think that's an important, if anyone's listening to this on this tape, I think it's really important to realize and, I think finally to be able to articulate. So it applies to anybody who has a light bulb outside, whether it's a residence or business. And if it's a floodlight or a spotlight and you have a 60-watt bulb in that floodlight or spotlight, this law applies. Or if you have a fixture that has a 120-watt light bulb, then this law applies. If you have a sconce on the side of your house that has a 70-watt bulb, you don't have to worry about it. We would still love for you to choose the better, safer, softer light, the yellow light, the non-blue light, but this applicability does not apply to you. If you even have, a floodlight that's a 30-watt bulb, it would not apply to you. So I think it's the applicability, I think, is it was confusing. And I think just like really reading it and understanding it now, I think that's really important for people to recognize that their garage light is not going to cause any challenges about light trespass. And I think another point, Karina, you made is, not that we would ideally think this is great, but if you have a single bulb hanging on a wire and it's a 40-watt bulb and you have no shield and you have nothing and it's just hanging on your porch, that is not applicable to this law. So you can have that bulb, 40-watt bulb hanging. It's about the wattage. It's not about, and the shield, but it's not about anybody who just has a house light. How much you have a house light. So if you have a 120-watt bulb and you decide to move to a 100-watt, you are no longer have to worry about this bylaw affecting you.
Right, it's that simple.
The last thing I'd want to do is open up a can of worms at this point, but I'm only thinking of this now, but LED lights have different wattage. And these are all equivalent to incandescent wattages. So I'm wondering if we may have issues in the future with that. It's possible. A 60 or 75-watt incandescent, you can replace it with an LED that's 5 watts. So I'm wondering which means you can have a 10 or 15-watt LED that's super duper bright. So I'm wondering if this is indeed going to be future-proof.
We could add the thresholds, the LED thresholds. So it would say wattage and then, equivalent, because it's equivalent to 60 watts, equivalent to 5 watts.
Yeah. Or
Well,
just to
Dustin,
indicate,
how does it relate to lumens? Because in the applicability, it actually specifies the lumens threshold for the two categories of lights, and then it just gives an equivalent for public understanding that 9 or 800 lumens equals a 60-watt incandescent. So when you're talking lumens, is that more universal to LED?
it is, yeah, in fact, it's universal, period. And I think, I'm just not remembering all the details, but if we do have that in there, the equivalency, then I think we're okay. Yeah. Yep.
Yes, I just want to point that out specifically so that everyone's really clear on it. In the bylaw, let me just get to it here real quick. Applicability, outdoor illumination by flood or spot luminaires rated at 900 lumens or more. And then in parentheses, it says, which is approximately equal to 160-watt incandescent light bulb. So that brings it down to everyday people who don't deal with this all the time, gives them a perspective. Like 900 lumens, most people don't know what that represents, but a 60-watt bulb represents that. But it is specified in lumens, or by any other luminaires rated at 1800 lumens or more, which is approximately equal to a 120-watt incandescent light bulb. So if lumens are universal in a sense, then I think we're okay.
Yep. No, I think we've been working on this so long, we're just forgetting what a good job we did. So
yeah, and
or
right
at least
now
I
we're
am
talking
anyway.
And we're talking watts and incandescent right now because that's what people will understand when they're presented this information.
That's right.
And if you even Google 900 lumens, it'll tell you it's 60 watts or 15 watts in LED. And we can say that in the presentation, or so you can find out what the equivalent is. So lumens is the universal, I think.
Thank goodness they put that in there in 2005.
So anyway, I think from our perspective, from the working group, we're very happy with Aldo's suggestions. We feel like we've ticked the check mark for advisory's request on writing the definitions. We've incorporated Chairman Healy's concerns. The final thing that advisory had thought we had said that we would be writing the process for enforcement, and I said we would not be doing that. That we could certainly collaborate with that, but that's not in our purview. That's not something we would be doing on the enforcement. And all we do in this bylaw is we revert it back to the other section in the bylaw that states how enforcement is handled with zoning issues. So I think that kind of ties all three outstanding issues that the other towns and committees had, town committees had raised. So we feel like we're in a really good place, and I got some excellent feedback on how to present at town meeting. We have 5 minutes and there's no presentation allowed. So I will be presenting about 2 minutes and Dustin will be presenting about 3 minutes. So I'll present on the kind of the technical stuff, the applicability, and Dustin will provide insight on the detrimental effects of blue light.
So there's no PowerPoint, you mean? We're not able to do anything like that? Well, for anyone or?
Nope, for
Wow.
nobody.
No.
So it's
The meeting's
Interesting.
outside, Destin. So
Okay.
right now they don't have the means to set up a screen and computer and wiring and everything and Wi-Fi, whatever.
Okay. Okay.
So it's just verbal presentation by the board members who speak to their articles.
Yeah, it's just going to be interesting because I wonder if anybody has a question about particular language. I guess they're just going to have to speak it to everyone rather than be able to show the particular language of it.
It's a challenge.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, and if at the townhouse we have printed warrants now, so I saved some for the planning board members. A couple of you already got them, so if you need one, we have them there for you. And Destin, we can get you one too.
Yeah.
They're going like hot
Yeah.
cakes.
I wouldn't
Wow,
say that, but
Yeah. So for all of the motions that are going to be made on the floor for this stuff, it'll just have to be all spoken. Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be very challenging. And then Dustin also has put together a fantastic mailer. So we've thought that mailing to people who had attended town meeting for the last 3 years, we don't know how many people that would be. We're getting a list from Mr. Haggerty, and that we would be putting together, we're getting a quote on that mailer. So it's a 2-sided mailer just on the blue light, the detrimental effects of blue light, and kind of what it means for voters. And we think that education piece would be very well received by people when they have to look at the lighting bylaw and better understand it.
And I would also like to say that if the budget of that is not substantial, that we possibly have a little room in the budget to cover the cost of that printing if the planning board finds that appropriate.
I would find it appropriate, but I'd have to look to my other members.
Rena, you're managing the budget. Unless you hear any objections, then we trust your judgment.
It's something that planning might do anyway as part of their process, just like with the public hearing, we paid for the legal ads, et cetera. It might be part of that as well. So we'll see how much it is and then we'll make it work.
Right. I'm not hearing any objections, so you use your best judgment,
All right, thank
as
you.
you always do. I want to go back to the, this is just a little piece of history. Karina, do you have your code there?
I do.
I forget whether it was in the 80s or the 90s, but town meeting, if there was any type of presentation, it was either just verbal or they used those overhead projectors.
Yeah.
And no matter what you did, when you put that translucent clear plastic, whatever, on that light table, it was always upside down and reversed, and you'd have to flip it a couple times to get it right. So that was the way it was done until the planning board presented the irregular shape lot bylaw. And I don't really remember when it was, but I wrote that bylaw and I created the presentation on maybe it was a floppy disk, and actually had a computer and had it projected onto a screen.
Are you talking about this one?
Well,
That lot?
it talks about the circles, the 75-foot
Oh,
diameter.
yes. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I was told that in the 200+ year history of the town of Southborough, I was the first person to have a computer assisted bylaw presented and passed. So if you look at the date on that irregular shape passed section,
In the
that was
zoning
the
district. Yeah, the criteria.
that was the first time a computer was ever used for a presentation of a town meeting warrant article.
And was it a word processor or a computer?
It wasn't my computer. I think I had to borrow Vanessa's. So, and
Yeah.
yeah, maybe it wasn't a floppy. It might have been a thumb drive, but it's that recent that, you know, computers weren't used in these town meetings.
It says here that like for residential aid, that criteria of the 75-foot circle was added in April 1995, amended in 1999.
So 95, first time
Yeah.
a computer was used.
It is too bad, I think, not that we don't have a computer, because we all have smartphones, like to be able to leverage that in a town meeting. But I guess we don't have the wherewithal to do that. Anyway, sorry.
Not yet.
There will be printouts of the motions that are to be made, or no? For
I think we have to create those.
yeah.
Yeah, I
So-
think we're working on that this week based on tonight's meeting, tonight's public hearing. So we talked about, the site plan has an amendment that we're going to write up. There's a special form that gets submitted to town clerk with the language, so that they can already be mostly prepared. There still may be amendments on the floor to those amendments, right? Sometimes it's back and forth. If I'm not mistaken, Don, I don't have as much experience in that, but
Justin, you're thinking to hand them out, right, with the warrant article? So people have them in hand, so they can read them?
Yeah, that was a thought because I'm just thinking about the complications of trying to dictate subtleties of language when people don't have it in front of them. And it's
Okay.
it may, like, we'll be handing out the FAQ, right? And maybe with that or something, could be the motions that we're going to make or something. I don't know. It's
Well, I thought during the dry run, Mr. Semino said that there would be a table or tables as you enter the area of the town meeting with, stacks of handouts. So if you don't care about the lighting, you won't grab one. If you do, you grab one to read it. And then usually when the article comes up, there's a bunch of people that'll say, I don't have it. And okay, raise your hand and we'll get it to you. It's cumbersome, but that's the way it used to be, forever. So
Yeah, I think Mr. Haggerty said to coordinate with him for what you want to have for handouts.
But they're not printing it. I think we have to print it.
we
Right.
print it, yes.
Yeah. So we have to
Yep.
figure out what we're going to print. So is it, maybe we think about that. How do you consolidate it all onto one page? So it's not a big packet.
well, you really are only proposing to change that one, the one paragraph in the warrant that's printed to these two paragraphs.
And
So
the
you could-
definitions.
And the definitions, if you put that on a page, I don't know.
Yeah, we also wanted to share the FAQ with people, which is, it's already a full two-sided type thing. So maybe
So it might be 2 pages if it's 2 amendments and then the FAQ double-sided.
and then just staple it or something.
Yeah,
So,
oh, yeah.
Okay,
I can do
So-
that.
we can figure that out.
Yeah, no worries.
Any more
that's it.
questions, comments? Marnie? Destin, lot of time, a lot of work, research, coordination on this one. Be a great credit to both of you if we're able to get it passed. So, again, there's a draft report that the town planner has given us. So, again, we should, or we could entertain a motion that that draft, that the planning board is okay with the revisions, with the proposed amendments.
Do we want to vote on the amendment first?
Yes, let's do that. So there's 2 amendments. What's the first one?
Applicability.
So, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we support the motion, the addition of the applicability to the annual town meeting warrant article update section 174-12.1 outdoor illumination.
Article 35.
For Article 35.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to support that amendment, proposed amendment. Any discussion? All in favor, Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
So Marnie, what is the second proposed amendment?
The second proposed amendment is to insert the definitions of flood luminaire and spot luminaire to the, wait, hold on one second. Stop. Is it spotlight and floodlight? or spot luminaire and flood luminaire.
Hold on.
It says, okay, it's again for, it's luminaires. It says outdoor illumination by flood or spot luminaires rated. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
right.
let me start again. Rewind. This is for Article 35 for
Putting the
amendment.
amendment.
Yep, amendment of language to insert two definitions into the definitions part of the bylaw for flood luminaire and spot luminaire.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any
Mhm.
discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Okay, so the planning board has voted to support the amendments. Now we need a motion to support the article with the amendments.
So moved.
Second.
Don, will
Motion's
it be
been made.
with or without? What if the amendments are not? You definitely want it with amendments only.
I don't know
Similar
if
to
the
this.
article could survive without the amendments.
True.
Or would we want it to go forward without the amendments? I'm not sure if we would.
Probably not, because the warrant language for applicability is different, right? It says immediate compliance. So you're right, if you don't support the immediate compliance with the lighting. So you're right, I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss that.
So the motion is to support the article with the amendments. Any other discussion? All in favor, Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
So going back to the site plan warrant article where we closed the public hearing, I don't think we actually took a vote to support that article.
We took a vote, but we accidentally said Article 35.
Well, we also said that it would be that we voted to support the report, but the
Oh,
report,
yes, you're right.
the report says that we voted 5-0 to support the article. And we never took that vote.
Right.
So what article number is it, Karina?
I'm sorry, it's Article 36. You're correct, Article 36.
So we would need a motion to support Article 36.
So moved.
With the amendment.
So moved.
And that amendment is to return the constructive approval.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion been made and seconded to support Article 36. What'd you say, 35?
36.
36, only with the amendment? So we
Dawn.
don't support it without the amendment?
Yeah, let me just back up.
Yeah,
We
either
have-
way, you're right.
We had a motion, approved town plan amend the report for site plan Article 36 to include with or without at town meeting floor, with or without the amendment. So there
Yes.
was a motion.
That was to approve the report.
Okay,
But in the report, it says that we voted to support the article. And now that's what the motion is right now, is to support the
Okay.
article with or without the amendment.
Okay.
Everybody agree with that? Any more discussion? All in favor, Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Okay, Now back to outdoor illumination.
Mhm.
We voted to support the amendments. We voted to support the article with the amendments. So the next step would be to close the public hearing. Mr. Mills,
Well, I think I'll let Marnie go first, but I think she's gonna say the same thing I am.
Yeah,
Let's see.
you asked us to have the building commissioner and some of the people that Board of Selectmen and such review some of our changes. So what if they come back and want to modify it?
we would, I guess in that case, we would, this motion, or we could have another motion that would give you, Marnie, Destin, and Sarah the authority to decide whether or not to accept changes from anybody. The planning board's giving you the green light to have the final say on what language the amendments would be.
So could we do that and still keep the warrant article open until May 24th? Just in case.
Well, the amendments are draft until they're brought forward at town meeting when the article comes up. So by giving the working group the green light to have this final say on the final language of the draft amendment, I mean, that can change. I mean, we've seen people changing their amendments while they're walking up to hand it to the town clerk. So I don't think I'm not sure if we need to keep the public hearing open. This is an amendment, and it's not going to go anywhere until it's read to the town meeting people, and then they decide, and they can even revise it, which we've seen.
I mean, I'm comfortable doing whatever Marnie and the working group are comfortable doing. So I'm not trying to be difficult. I just want to make sure that they're comfortable with, and I'm fine giving them that authority. So.
And I don't know about Justin and Sarah, but I feel like the language as it is, I think we're happy with. I don't think we want any changes to that language. But I think if you give us the ability to kind of think about that, if there's suggested changes, I think, we would appreciate that ability to say yay or nay. But I think the probability will say.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we give the working group the authority to make adjustments to the amendment as needed for town meeting floor to Article 35.
Second,
So outdoor illumination is 35.
Correct.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
So we have a plan for the path forward, ranging from having others review the language, huddling with those people that we need to as far as handouts, and getting the language of those handouts, getting them printed, making sure that they're not left in Sarah's trunk of her car in Beckett Saturday morning. If there's nothing else on this, then if it's appropriate, we could entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion, we close the public hearing for annual town meeting warrant article, update section 174-12.1 outdoor illumination.
second,
Motion's been made and seconded to close public hearing. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
We may be hearing another barking dog in a few seconds here. And I'll try to mute myself so it's not distracting. So
Could I
the next,
point out one Scrivener's error, Don?
Yeah.
When the motion was made for the ZBA article, for the non-conforming warrant article that the ZBA sponsored, the motion accidentally said Article 35. It really meant Article 34, because it's ZBA is number 34, outdoor illumination is Article 35, and the site plan warrant article is Article 36. So I just wanted to put that in the record for the meeting.
it's in the record, right, Kate? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Next item on the agenda is the other business properly before the board planners report.
Right, let me quickly get to that.
Thanks, everyone.
Can I pause for 1 second?
Thank you, Dustin.
Thank you, Dustin.
Thanks, Dustin. Great work. And Marnie, you wanted to have a timeout?
Yeah, just really quickly before Dustin left.
Yeah.
John, you and I had discussed something after we closed out tonight where we could practice. Can I invite Dustin back for practice?
Absolutely, because
Okay.
it's actually, Karina and I researched the open meeting law requirements, and this would clearly fall in the area of training. The board is able to meet, beyond a quorum for the purpose of training, and that's what this is. That's what this will be.
So I
That
can
answer the
text you.
question?
Yeah.
So you got to hang around, Destin.
Marnie will message me when it's time to go.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thanks, Dustin.
Thanks again. Yep.
Thank you. And Sarah. It's really Sarah. That's why we're so far
Absolutely.
ahead.
No, you guys are great.
Karina, you're on planners report.
Okay, very quickly, we received an update from town administrator Friday evening that it's the goal that the town offices will reopen to the public on Monday, June 1st is the anticipated timeframe, with all precautions in place when you're inside the building. And also, that's the big thing. That's the big news. So the town
So at
office.
some point, we may actually be able to use the hearing room again.
At some point, but not at that point. We still have to do remote meetings for now, but that may be following this in the relatively near future.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's see here. On April 30th, Southborough had its Arbor Day. And again, even though there was no specific event, there are trees that were planted out next to the Historical Museum. Some are there just being staged, some will probably be moved, but they're prospering there, they're growing there. And the tree we planted 2 years ago is looking good. It's growing and the leaves were red, so it's a good thing. I want to point out that there is a free training webinar code of conduct for town boards and committees on May 12th at 11:30 virtual workshop. I believe I forwarded that to everybody. And then tomorrow is annual town election, at which Mimi Luttrell is on for her planning board seat. Sarah and I continue to work with the building department to progress on any non-compliance issues at some of the locations we're looking at right now. And at some point, we'll report back on those in more detail.
Did you want to speak at all about open space inspections?
Oh, yes, I can speak to that. We're in the process of procuring Lucas Environmental for fiscal year 21 open space inspections. We provided him with a list. When I say we, I put together a list and I sent them, included Freddie Gillespie, Chair of the Open Space Commission, to review the list as well. And she gave me an idea of a couple of priorities she had. So we have a list of 10 locations, of which 7 will be able to address under this year's contract. That contract will probably be finished and signed this week, and they'll start their work, which will be substantially completed by June 30th. Any questions on that? Once that contract is drafted, as in previous years, Don will review it and sign it as he's done in the past to make sure everything's in order.
Right, unless the board wants to handle it a different way. Hearing no objections, and that's the way we'll do it.
I'll also point out that I am following up on Fayville Hall, and as you recall, there was an auction house that was permitted there, and we're looking into the status of that, see what's going on with that. To be reported back on in the near future. And that's all I have for this evening.
The approval of minutes,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the minutes from April 26, 2021 as written.
Second.
motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
This item on the agenda is, our next meeting is now May 24th, which is two days after town meeting. Any other questions, comments from the public, from the board?
Mimi, thank you for running for re-election.
Yes.
So after, if the next item is to vote on adjourning, then, and if that passes, then Sarah will, what's the term? Kick everybody else out?
Yes, I'll stop the recording and I'll close the webinar.
And
We do
and then
currently
the-
have one attendee, just so
We
you're
do
aware.
currently have one attendee.
And then the 7 of us, 8 of us, Kate's welcome to stay.
Thank you so much.
The 8 of us would
Thanks
then
on that.
go into a short training session.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
So Sarah,